Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome back to so many familiar folks. And also, I think we have a couple of new folks in the room tonight. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening in what is the autumn slump for many of us post Halloween, post time change, post full moon. If you're in the Seattle area, you know that we're in an atmospheric river that is just dumping rain on us at the moment. And Victor is also joining us once again from the East Coast time zone at the lovely hour of 9:05 p.m. So we just appreciate everybody rallying. Yes, Logan, I hear you. Rallying and showing up for this very important training and conversation tonight, talking about how to continue our very important work around anti bias education with young children. Once again, my name is Becky Krieger. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Hilltop Outreach Institute coordinator. And so thrilled to have Victor here for this final session of this two-part series. I will let him introduce himself, as many of you know Victor at this point. And just a couple housekeeping reminders. I see a lot of you have your cameras off. That's perfectly fine. Thank you to those of you who are able to have your camera on. Anyone else who can have their camera on, really appreciate it. Again, no pressure if it's just not possible or an option for you tonight. There will be opportunities for you to come off mute. We likely will not be doing breakout sessions tonight, so we'll be asking for your participation in the whole group because we're a small and mighty group tonight, as well as to participate in the chat. And we will have some video links to share tonight. We just ask for your patience. There might have to be a bit of a transition as we transition from slides to links. So that might just take a minute for us to get that going. And no, you're not imagining things. There are two of me on the screen, just so you're not startled by that. I do have another computer going just to minimize as many glitches tonight as possible. And last but not least, before I hand things off to Victor, I just invite everyone to join us in a collective land acknowledgement, as is our practice before our training events. And we really just pause and take this intentional moment to acknowledge that each of us here are living and working on occupied Indigenous lands. And these lands continue to be stewarded and cared for by all Indigenous communities around us. Where we are at Hilltop and other programs here in Seattle and King County, we acknowledge the Duwamish, the Suquamish, the Muckleshoot, and the Snoqualmie tribes, as well as the neighboring Puyallup and Tulalip tribes. You may already know that November is Native American History Month, so this is a perfect time to be reminded and encouraged to find meaningful ways to connect to your local Indigenous community, to share resources and education with children and families in your programs in ways that help us all continue to build our collective restorative justice efforts. I'm going to drop some more links in the chat for you. If you're in Washington State, the Northwest Justice Project has put together a weekly event and education series that is dedicated to honoring and celebrating our Indigenous community. And you can also check out additional resources here connected to Native American Heritage Month, as well as just continuing your efforts around Indigenous restorative justice as an early learning professional. And with that, I hand things over to the wonderful Victor as I get that PowerPoint fired up. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you so much, Becky. It's really great to be back with you all. It's lovely to see familiar faces back for the second round, and it's also lovely to see new faces as well. So thank you for being here tonight and taking the time. It's been a bumpy week for me with the time change and all kinds of things just kind of popping up and things breaking. And I've just like the full moon, I just think between the full moon and the time change and Halloween, it's been a rough one. But I feel like today was calmer, and I'm excited to be with you all. And I feel like this is gonna hopefully a new beginning for all of us after going through quite a bumpy week for everybody. Um, I'm really excited to be here tonight because this is sort of my favorite things that we're going to talk about. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is books and literature for young children. And that's sort of my favorite thing. When I was in the classroom, I couldn't have enough books. It just was endless. And I was fortunate to be in a classroom that had a budget, and I would spend it all on books just to have and interchange them, change them out, and have a library of my own, which was so lovely. Um, I also started to do some activism work, and we're going to talk about that tonight. The last sort of 10 years of my teaching. And I learned that in a Quaker school, which was really great too. The other thing that I'm going to talk to you about is sort of not just activism, but talking about how you can sort of use books with young children and how you can sort of use the books to help you think about them being change makers in some way and look at change makers, and sort of having them sort of take on this work, in a way where they're excited and thrilled and feel powerful in a time where we feel sort of powerless, particularly doing this work. So that's sort of pretty much what we're gonna do tonight, around that. And I think the reason why I think I like books so much is because I learn along with them around reading books to them. And I learn about people, I learn about topics. I get to push myself, even though they're children's books, to think about, wow, what were people doing at that time and what am I doing now to make a difference and make changes? Um, and they're just so open to being change makers and being people that really, really, really want to do the work. They're just open, 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 which is really cool too. So, Becky, you're having some challenges.
It's just taken a minute to load.
Yeah,
So I wonder, Victor, while it's loading, if you want to do your little self intro again for
I'll
the group.
totally do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for me, um, I grew up in a small town, in Connecticut, very Republican, white, waspy town, and it wasn't easy. Um, but I think it really grounded me in this work because I didn't see a lot of reflections of me. And I sort of had to sort of really, I was this sort of big kid, and I had to sort of be really small or sort of morph myself to be smaller than I even wanted to be. And that was challenging. Um, so, but one thing I noticed that I really liked working with young children. I love babysitting. I love just being around kids that were younger than me. And that was unusual, but I really sort of had a natural act to it, and they wanted to be around me. And I automatically wanted to volunteer, in when I was like 15 and 16 in an early childhood program. From there, I was in high school, and I was fortunate enough to have the one of the admissions directors come to my high school from Wheelock College. And I was really thrilled to find out there was a school actually just geared toward early childhood education. And it was golden. And so I was able to come visit in Boston and come here and then move here and really be connected. And that's where sort of everything began, everything connected for me. And after that, I just was sold. And a lot of my friends and colleagues, after they were done with school, they didn't become teachers or social workers. They sort of did something different, but I couldn't imagine doing anything different. So I sort of went out in Boston and worked in all different kinds of settings, from public to private to small childcare centers to home childcare centers. And I just wanted to sort of be with as many children as possible in different economical backgrounds. And that's sort of what I did for many, 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 many years until I sort of ended up doing, 5 years ago, just doing this work, as my main gig. So that's a little bit about me. So, celebrating differences and embracing, here we are. And I want to start embracing unity and kindness in 2025 and beyond. So, last time we did a lot of work on ourselves and talking about, things, and now we're going to really look at the parts that you can sort of use, and I hope you can take and really use in your classrooms. And if you're not classrooms, you can do it as a family member. You can sort of use these books and tools to sort of really have kids thinking well about themselves and really get excited about other kinds of people that were different than them through literature and books. So let's move to the next slide. Thank you so much, Becky, for getting it going. So I'd love to just start with your name, what brought you here, and what is your hopes for to get out of today's session. And I think we can, if people don't mind, I think we're just going to stay together, and we're a smaller group. And just if you don't feel comfortable talking, you can put it in the chat. That's totally fine. But I just love to get sort of a feeling on, you know, who you are and, what brought you here and, what do you want to get out of the session today? Anyone going to be brave?
I can go. Hello.
Great.
Hi, I'm Valerie, and I work at Hilltop Children's Center, and I do enrollment, so I'm not in a classroom, but I enjoy all the Institute events that are on Zoom. I don't live in Seattle, so I can attend in person. And I just from I always learn something about myself and other people and how I relate to the broader community. So that's what I hope to get out of this session.
Fantastic. Thank you, Valerie.
I'll go ahead. My name is Logan. Also kind of what Valerie was saying. It's so helpful to like talk to other teachers about like problems you're having or just ways we can, teach kids better about especially about like difficult topics that, require some a lot more like sensitivity and we might not always have perfect perspectives on ourselves. So it's really helpful to like hear from a more diverse group of people than like just my immediate coworkers. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about books, actually. I'm excited we're gonna do that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Logan.
I can go next. I'm
Great.
Christy. I work in like support for preschool and schoolage program at Pinehurst in Seattle, near Northgate area. And I love Hilltop trainings. And I enjoyed your talk last time. And I love like kid books are my favorite books. I have like a whole collection of them. And so when you talked about that, you're gonna talk about books, I was like, I have to sign up for this. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christy.
My name's Meredith. I also work with Christy and then Maymoon and Salam, and there's quite a few of us. So be glad we're here, or your group would be a lot shorter, smaller. But but I just really love the topic about anti-bias, and it's always something I'm learning more about. I've been in the field a long time, but I feel like I am weak in that area, and I just want to learn as much as I can about my own self, my own biases, and then how to have those challenging conversations with families and being brave and even with children being okay to not know all the answers, but kind of figuring things out together. And I was at your last session too, and you were a great presenter, and I really felt inspired. So I want to just keep that feeling going.
Thank you, Meredith. It's great. Awesome.
Hi, I'll go next.
I'll go.
My name is Aurora, and I'm actually from the Bay Area in California. So I work for Head Start. I was a home visitor for about 6 years, and now I work in a center. So I work more directly with parents now. So I want to just kind of gain more knowledge of everything and just have better conversations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi,
I'll
my name
go.
is Leanne.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Laura. My name is Leanne, and I work in two places. I work at Hilltop on Fridays as a substitute teacher, but I also work at a cooperative preschool in Seattle. And what brought me here is every time I see Victor's name, I always click on that session really quick because I've been to, I think, almost all of yours, and
You have.
you just have this really gentle, approachable way of seeing things and making it, not that it's easy, but making it feel like it can be easy to talk about hard topics. And I also love all of your book lists, so I'm hoping to get more out of that. And the last thing is that being at my other school, I'm the only educator in the whole classroom or in the whole school. So it's just nice to connect with others.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks for coming, being a big supporter. I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Laura. I was here last session and I really enjoyed Victor's presentation a lot and just the format of how he presented this topic. And I work at the Learning Tree Montessori Preschool up on Capitol Hill in downtown Seattle. And we do a lot of ABAR work in our school with our kids and our families. And we're in the process of doing a whole school anti-bias, anti-racist audit, which we're just sort of getting our feet wet in it, but it's going to be an ongoing project for all of our staff, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm just hoping to get more information and start internalizing a lot of, the anti-bias, anti-racist things that I've I've come to know so far, but I know there's much more on this journey, and I'm really excited to be on it with all of you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Wow, that's a big, big project you're taking on. That's amazing. Feel free to reach out if things get hard or tricky for you.
I see Margot shared in the chat. Margot says, I'm running a pre-K program looking for ideas and inspiration for ABAR topics, anti-bias, anti-racist topics. I love books, so this is a great training for me. Wonderful that we have a group of book lovers tonight.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Anyone else? I've been really bad. I haven't kept track.
Okay, I'll do. My name is Salam Moy Tatlaw, and I work with Meredith, Kirsty, and all my teams in this web. I learned from a lot for last training, the anti-biased. Always ask myself, this chapter is so hard for me. I get a lot of information. Thank you. And this time, I want to learn more professional development, the book area more, because I'm a preschool teacher and school age teacher. More the obsessed with a lot of different book. Even my classroom children, they obsessed with big kids book. Make sure how prepare for them, how we engage with them to learn for this program.
Great. Thank you so much. Anyone else feeling brave? Well, we can move on. Thanks so much for all the people that shared. It makes it so much easier to hear what people are thinking about and why they came. And it's also helpful for me to just sort of help all of us to hear other people's ideas too. I think in it because we're on Zoom and not in the same place, it sort of makes it a little bit more connected to sort of hear what's going on with people instead of me just talking. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. All right, I think we can move to the next one. So part two, we're going to look, we talked about the importance of diversity in children's books. The other thing we're going to look at is how can you incorporate social studies, inclusiveness, and activism into children's lives through change makers. And then we're going to wrap up. I want to give, and I'm going to have a book that's going to get read. And if we have time, and then we'll hopefully have a nice chunk for question and answers at the end for everybody. And you can answer questions from the first session or the second session. I'm really open to whatever. And I had a couple of questions that people sent in, and I'm going to answer those as well at that time. But feel free if we're gonna have certain breaks, and if I reach out and if you have a question, then you don't have to wait till the end either. I don't want to have you that. So I will have certain portions where you can sort of weigh in. So don't worry. All right, next slide, please. So I always like to start with norms, just to sort of have a safe space for everyone. I want everyone to just feel included. I want everyone to feel like this is, they can sort of, if they're new to this work, they can feel comfortable. If they've been doing this for a long time, they can sort of give space for people that are new to this work to lean in and make mistakes and ask questions that might be hard to hear. So I love starting with norms. So speak from the I. Be mindful of speaking order. If you have already spoken twice, make sure you pause and let others speak who have not. Assume positive intent. Keep an open mind. Give people the benefit of the doubt and assume good intentions. Respect differences, be present, be honest. And I always add this part too: what is learned here leaves here, and what is said here stays here. And that just gives some safe space for people after they leave. If they don't want to bring up a topic again, or if something, really hard has come up for them, and they get approached and why did you say that? Or what did you think about that? You can have, I want to give permission to people to say, no, I don't really want to talk about it, or I'll talk about it another time. So that's why I sort of always add that as well to the norms. Right, next slide, please. The importance of diversity in children's books and setting up an inclusive and equitable library. Um, I didn't always start out with a lot of books, and I would go to the library and bring books in the classroom. And then, like I said, I just sort of buying, and I would just sort of go to bookstores and really have to have a budget because I would go crazy. But I found the more books I had, the better teacher I could be, and I could sort of have multiple stories from multiple different kinds of people. And it was really, really helpful to help me I learned more and they got to learn with me. Next slide, please. And these are just book covers of multiple books that I've used for many reasons, just to have in my classroom. I've used them for changemaker work, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I've used them for activism, and I've just sort of sharing stories like about people's lives. Next slide, please. So we have our first very short video, two short videos. We'll see if they work. And if they don't, that's okay. We'll move on, but we're gonna give them a shot. And one is about this incredible woman who really is sort of identified, mirrors and and windows and mirrors, on how sort of we look at each other, how you can look through a window and see somebody who looks different than you, or look at a mirror and look at yourself. And she sort of coined that phrase, particularly with young children, that they need to have that kind of representation. And that's so important. And it really influenced many authors to write children's books around to show more mirrors in children, which I think is so vital and so important. Grace Lin, an author of Chinese descent, she coined that phrase a lot, and that's why she illustrates and writes children's books, because she feels that there weren't a lot of books that were positive as a Chinese American child growing up here in Massachusetts, and so she decided, I'm going to write books. I'm going to make this happen. So let's see if it's going to work.
And just let me know, folks, if you can't hear the sound.
When I was 5,
Okay, so
Mom and I laid out on the
video.
lawn
Okay.
and ran our
I'm
fingers.
just gonna, can you stop? I'll just like narrate a little bit. So this is also an incredible video. The other one was very short, but this is a woman who grew up on a reservation as a baby and was sadly sent away, which happened a lot in the 1950s and 60s, and was forced to live with a white family to have people have her assimilate into US culture. And she talks about what transracial adoption looks like. And even though her experience was very negative, she thinks transracial adoption is an okay thing and it's still what we want. And she shows the pros and the cons. The part of the video I wanted to show to you, I'm not going to show the whole thing because it's long, but the part of the video we're going to start to see is the part her talking about what it's the pros and the cons of transracial adoption. But she tells her whole story. You will get a copy of this video. You can watch the whole thing. It's 18 minutes long, and it's an amazing story talking about the white family that she lived with and all the traps and racism that she felt and experienced living in white communities, being Native and Indigenous girl. So with that, let's try to see if it works. I hope it does.
And Victor, how long would you like me to play it for?
If you could cue it up, if it's possible, that might not be, to around 11:50 into it, 11:50, because it's an 18-minute video. If not, you can just play it from the beginning if it's not going to allow you to cue it up. But around 11 would be great.
11:50?
Yeah, try it from there. And close as you can. If it's in the 11s is great, and we'll just go from there.
Don't compromise quality insurance for savings or your
But we're
time.
gonna have an ad because
We'll skip the ad.
always have
Time for
to do
this
that
ad.
to you.
Hit that skip button or don't.
Just the positives of what it means to be ethnic in a white world. So, knowing that
Perfect.
transracial
Thank
adoption
you.
is always going to be with us, how do we make it better for the adoptee? Which brings me to the first question that I want to ask any prospective parent who's thinking about adopting. Why do you want to adopt? Now, we know the bad answers, like when Angelina Jolie said she wanted a rainbow family, or that frustratingly common, but those Asian kids are just so cute. Or worse still, there are people who want to save a child by ensuring that they are raised in a Western culture and a Western religion, which is just straight up racist. In my situation, the US government during the 50s and 60s had placed American Indian children with white parents in order to assimilate us. Colonizing and systematically erasing a culture, obviously not good reasons to adopt. So, of course, the right answer is that you want to adopt for the child's sake and put your own interests and benefits to the side. Prioritizing in the best interest of the child means that you will provide them food and clothing and shelter, but you'll also provide them mental and emotional well-being. All of us have a very human need for identity and belonging. And you can be the best parent in the world, but that adopted kid is going to wonder where they came from. And you are the gatekeeper. You can choose closed adoption with its sealed records and its severed ties, or open adoption, where relationship with birth family is supported and encouraged. Now I get it. Open adoption in our either-or culture is understandably terrifying because we are dichotomous. Things are either good or bad or black or white or right or wrong, and children are either yours or mine. But there is a whole world of possibility between yours and mine, and it starts with transracial adoption. And studies actually show that this is a better outcome for the transracial adoptee. So what would this look like? Let me give you an example from New Zealand, a country where open adoption is standard. You have Tasha. Tasha is from India. She is in New Zealand on a visa. She is young, single, and pregnant. She belongs to an ethnic group that is unaccepting of unmarried mothers. She feels that because she has no family support and she has no social network to help her raise her child, the only option she has available to her is to place her daughter for adoption. You have Mary. Mary's a white woman. She and her husband have a child of their own. She hears about Tasha's story and she agrees to adopt Tasha's daughter with the understanding that Tasha will have an active role in that child's life. As a consequence, Tasha sees her daughter every 2 weeks. She has a phone call with her on those weeks in between. The whole family, including Tasha, gets together and celebrates all birthdays. They celebrate all holidays together. Tasha's daughter is going to be 12 years old this year, and she never has to wonder who her birth mother is, or what she's like, or what her culture is like, because she's living that experience every day. That is an example of the adoptive family bringing the birth family into their circle. Let me give you an example of the birth family or the birth community bringing the adopted family into their circle. It's called customary adoption, and it's practiced by Indigenous people worldwide. In customary adoption, the adoptee and the adoptive family, parents, are invited to participate and observe ceremonies and activities and events and gatherings that teach the child who they are, where they come from, and why that's important, with the whole idea being that that child will now have support in both worlds. 5 months ago, I became a grandmother for the second time. And I understand that need to keep your child safe and protected feels so urgent and overwhelming. But sometimes in order to protect your child, you have to put your own interests and fears to the side. You have to look at that child and look into their future. You have to look deep into their future and ask yourself, what does this child need in order to live and to thrive in this world? Adoption is an act of superhuman generosity. But the generosity can't stop as soon as the papers are signed. If the birth family or the adoptive or the birth community requests to play a role in that child's life, honor that. And trust that love is not a finite thing, that there will be enough love for your child to love their birth parents as well as you. Because only when these two families come together in the best interests of the child will that child have a great future. Thank you.
So I thought that was a really powerful talk. I knew very little about transracial adoption, and I learned a lot from that video. So I really wanted to share that with you. So when I get to the adopted book section, you will say, oh, this is really important to have books on adoption, and multitudes of books about adoption, not just the one. I used to have the one wonderful, lovely Mr. Rogers adoption book in my classroom and thought I had done the work. And it's really important to have multiple adoption stories, because there are multiple adoptions in different ways. But I loved hearing perspective. I highly recommend watching that on your own, the whole thing, and hearing her entire story, which is so powerful. And I think more and more Indigenous people are coming out as saying how they were forced into adoption by their families. And it's sort of a new phenomenon for us, and it's been going on for centuries, sadly. At least for me, us on the East Coast. Maybe on the West Coast, you might have had more conversations with this, but we don't talk about it here. Any questions or thoughts before I move on after watching that? All right, keep going.
And the slideshow's just loading up again.
Excellent. Great. And also, Debbie Reese is a wonderful resource for Indigenous um, books and content. She was raised on a reservation and she has her own site that you can actually email her on or fact check with her about accuracy in books. And she will get back to you within 2, 3, 4 days. She's amazing like that. Um, she's really great about, and I sort of have changed my tune around books and how I screen them. And I really only like to share books that are written by Indigenous or Native people or First Nation people, just because there's been so many inaccuracies and so many mistruths about their culture that I only really trust um, Indigenous people to really write books, especially for children. So I'm very careful about that now than I was before. Great, awesome, you got it up. Good job. We can move to the next slide. Probably froze.
Sorry about that. It just disappeared on me. 1 second.
All right. It's coming. All right. Let's see if it will work. Oh, the next slide. Good. So this is a great, wonderful resources for you to watch on your own. There's an article. There's a TED Talk by Grace Lin, who's an incredible author I talked about. It's about 12 minutes long talking about windows and mirrors. And then there's also a great TED Talk about the single story, which I think I might have showed last time, about a woman from Kenya and how she talks about the single story and the danger of that, and how it's really not that we will get one book. Like I said, I had the adoption book and I thought I was all set. That really you have to have multiple stories. And if you're reading you just have one book about one group of people, just make sure this is a story about this very particular family, but not, about all families who look like this, who are this kind of person. So I think that's really important to emphasize that. There's also a great New York Times article on adoption, and also from the late Walter D. Myers opinions on where all the people of color in children's books, which is also a great New York Times article as well. All right, next slide, please. Research shows that talking to children about race and engaging in related activities when children are young improves academic performance, racial pride, and other outcomes. It's never too early to engage in direct and indirect communication about race and ethnicity. And a lot of people would disagree with that, but it's actually true. Children want answers. They want to know why someone's skin looks different, why someone's hair looks different, why are they in a wheelchair? They're very curious. They want to know. They want to know if that's going to happen to them. They want to know, am I going to wake up in the morning and be different than I am right now? Those are valid questions for young children to ask, and we should be able to answer them very relaxedly. And if we can't, then we can say, oh, you know what? I don't know about that. I'll get back to you. And then, come back to them, and they may not be interested in that moment, but it's okay. Like it's good to know that they're in it with you and learning with you, and that's okay, not to have all the answers. Next slide, please. So I have this really great diverse book finder, and this will be also on the slides that you get, and you can just click on that diverse book finder and put in a book, put in a topic, and a bunch of books will come up. And I found this to be really helpful because people were always talking about, well, how do I find books if I'm doing this topic or I'm doing this theme and I don't know where to look and I can't get to the library. And so you can do this research on your own. So it's really, really helpful. So I find I was so excited to find that somebody actually done this. Next slide, please. Board books have really stepped up in the past 5 to 8 years. They're incredible. There's so many great board books, and they keep coming out all the time. And it used to be board books were just really, I think, I think of Curious George, I think of Winnie the Pooh, and those were lovely books. But now they're actually, diverse stories and stories about activism and about people and about change makers, and it's endless. So don't sleep on board books. They're great, and they're indestructible almost. Um, so you can have them in your classroom and have them out for children if you're worried about the books. Next slide, please. Megan Madison is a fairly new author. In the pandemic, she was sitting at home and working on her PhD and was like, I'm gonna write books. And so she wrote a series of books that all sort of came out, felt like the same day, but over a series of 3 to 4 years. And there are more coming. And they're so helpful, so informative, so incredible. And I really, really like the way she writes her books. I like the descriptions that parents can learn along with their kids as they're reading this book, as well as teachers can too. Um, and they're very, I like that she broke them into categories of, you know, everybody talking about bodies, goodbyes, and these are all things that we all have to face as humans, and especially young humans, and being you, our skin, we care, yes, no. Really, really great books. And she had support from other folks too, but it was her vision that she really wanted these books out in the world, and I'm so glad that they are. Uh, Next slide, please. So I have this video. I'm probably not going to show it. It's very short, but it's from my colleague Enid Lee, and she just talks about how you can use a book like Our Skin, which is a children's book, to really educate yourself. And she also talks about previewing books and how it's so important to read a book ahead of time as a parent or a teacher or a guardian, so you know what you're getting into. So if the child asks questions, you're ready. And so she talks very briefly about that in the video, and it's great. She's amazing. I could listen to her all day long. She's incredible, incredible resource. Enid Lee, she has a great book as well, which we'll talk about later, for parents and for educators. Next slide, please. So here's a bunch of diverse books that I've used. I feel like I said, having a collection of different kinds of books, um, the All Are Welcome is a great book for the first day of school, for kids to feel included. It just shows all different kinds of children coming to school, all different kinds of teachers. And I love this other book, What Does Brown Mean to You? I mean, I remember when I was teaching at a Quaker school, and I'd made purposely brown Play-Doh, all different shades. And we'd actually made it as a class. We made it and we were really excited, and we, put this color in and we talked about it. And it was part of us stepping up to sell portraits. We were really looking at shades of tan and brown. And a parent came in and she was like, "Oh, that Play-Doh's disgusting. Like, it's gross. Looks like poop. Why do you even do that? Like, that's really horrible." And I stood her aside. I was like, "So, been reading the newsletters?" Like, I gotta just talk to her. And she was like, "Oh, oh." So I love that Ron Grady has written this book about brown, because it's just so great to have this book out in the world. If you don't know the color red, it's about a crayon that's been uh, it's basically says red on the label, and the crown is actually blue. So it's a great conversation to talk about people who don't feel comfortable in their bodies. And a great first conversation to talk about people who feel like a girl inside, and maybe they're a boy on the outside. So it sort of begins those conversations. It's Okay to Be Different is a great book by Todd Parr. One of my favorite books are It Feels Good to Be Yourself. Really, really wonderful book. All the Colors of You Are is a great book that I've used for self-portraits. Hair Love was written actually by a football player about his daughter. I love teaching about Thurgood Marshall and connecting Thurgood Marshall to Ruby Bridges, that he helped to change the laws to help Ruby Bridges go to school, being the first Black African American man to be on the Supreme Court. I also love the book Fry Bread as well. And it's just a great book to talk about indigenous culture, but really it's just talking about baking bread with your family. That's really what it's about. And The Proudest Blue, True You, and They, She, He, ABC. So we'll move on. Next slide, please. So there are lots of great books also in gender now. They used to only have white and Caucasian characters in them. Now we're seeing more and more uh, majority folks, people, indigenous folks in books talking about gender. And it's about time because, it's just great to have that representation. Um, Older book that I also like that I used to teach about gender all the time before all these amazing books came out was Pug Dog, which is a dog that gets misgendered by his owner, and the dog actually gets really depressed, and then the dog gets so depressed that that the owner takes it to the vet and uh, thinks it's sick, and when actually that he finds out that he's been calling the dog by a different gender. And so then he overboards and goes the other way and starts dressing the dog in dresses and lipstick, and like it sort of turns around and it's extremes. But it sort of gets to show that you can sort of be who you want to be. And I love that book for a first starter talking about gender with children as well. Next slide, please.
And Victor, I just wanted to share, there was a share in the chat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Faye add to the gender topic books. There's a
Yes.
great book called My Maddie,
Oh,
kid
okay.
talking about their parent who is non-binary.
Excellent.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, there's so many great books coming out. It's endless now. It's a good time for children's books. Here's Graceland, who I spoke about a little earlier. Like I said, she has many books about her life and being a Chinese American and in positive ways and just great stories, and cookbooks. And she is local here in Massachusetts, so we get a lot of contact with her, but she does travel around the country. She will come to your classroom. She will come to your school. She's at a lot of book fairs, and she also goes to many bookstores. So I'm sure you can catch her when she's on the West Coast. Next slide, please. Bell Hooks, sadly we lost about 4 years ago, but she has amazing children's books, really talking about hair and bodies and talking about skin and just really, really fun, very sing-songy, poetic books. And if you don't know who Bell Hooks is, there's actually a little documentary on here that if you push on the blue part, it'll talk about her life and that she was this incredible African heritage female feminist book writer for adults as well. So you can read her books and then have books in your classroom of hers. Next slide, please. You probably all heard of Dr. Kendi. He was in Massachusetts for a little while, and we were fortunate to have him here at BU. And then things changed around funding, and he actually is now at Howard University, which is amazing for him to be with African heritage people. But he has wonderful, amazing children's books, middle school books, high school books, and sometimes he has the same book and he just adapts it for the different age groups of children and adults. Definitely check him out. He's great. Next slide, please. I also just sort of investigated more books on Haiti, on Haitian liberation, because there were a lot of attacks on Haitians. There always has been, but it sort of came back into light a couple of years ago. And I really wanted to sort of spotlight positive image of people who are from Haiti, who live in Haiti and just tell their stories. And so I sort of made a slide for that as well. There are more books than this, but these are the ones that I have read and I really enjoy. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I have, I always have my lovely book slides, and I really wanted to sort of, because, things were changing so quickly in the United States, and a lot of hard conversations were coming up here in Massachusetts and around the country. And so I decided to do some research around books on homelessness, poverty, food insecurity, immigration, asylum seekers, and language liberation. So this made me go, okay, people need access to these books, and we need to have these around children. So when the questions come up, when worries come up, we have books to help us tell these stories. So next slide, please. So I found these really great books, children books about homelessness and poverty and food insecurity, immigration, asylum seekers, language liberation can help children understand it, and empathize with people from different backgrounds, to spell stereotypes and teach kindness and respect. So even if you're not in a community where any of these things are happening, it's important for children to know that they are happening, and have empathy for people and show kindness. And it sort of has them thinking outside of their small bubble that they live in, that some people are struggling and some people are having a hard time. So I feel like these books would be great for any child. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with language liberation. It's something that I feel like also has sort of been is in the headlines yet again, around negativity around the Super Bowl. And I feel like we need to just keep these books visible, talking about from something like sign language to speaking Spanish, to indigenous languages, that there are so many different languages. And I've done lots of projects around languages. I was fortunate to be in a university school here in Massachusetts, where I had a lot of kids who spoke 2 and 3 and 4 languages. And so we got to write those out and see where those languages came from and where they are originated from, and read books about them. And we had a map up, and we did a poll, and it was really, really powerful, what we figured out. Next slide, please. So we have another video. This one is from a film I'm pretty much many of you have seen, but I'd love to sort of re-look at it just from this clip. And it's basically set up talking about how you set up language liberation in your classroom in sort of the most simplest way, even just listening to conversations, listening to how kids react to different languages, if you speak a second language, bringing that into your classroom, who you are, all about bringing more of yourself in. And also, like I said, doing interesting projects on, very often, like, people label parts of the classroom in different languages, and deciding how you want to do that and where you want to go with that. And I love that this film is able to sort of really spotlight that, and how the person in the film talking about her language, which I believe is Spanish, says that she was sort of ashamed to talk in Spanish when she was a kid at school, and now she gets, as a teacher, gets to sort of share her language with the class, and then also celebrate other people's languages as well, and really, really make them feel excited and happy about who they are and how they speak. So hopefully the clip will work. We'll see. And yeah, we just need to move it up a little bit. Let's see. This is a long film, as you know. Many of you know. If you've not seen this film, I highly recommend you see it. You might even be working near the school where the film was filmed, because I know it was filmed around your area. And I love going into schools and showing this film. It has great messages, but I just love the teaching in this film. It's such incredible teaching. It really shows teachers just showing their best. And I think parents would enjoy this film as well as teachers would enjoy this film just to see the outstanding teaching and the relationship that teachers have with children. I think it really shows the amount of work that goes into classrooms, that the work that is silent, that people don't get to see all the amazing work you do when you're working with young children. And this film really shows that. It really shows who um how how just it's such a journey to be with children and how things build up. I show like to show the self-portrait clip as well. And that sort of shows like how these kids really communicate how their face looks and how their eyes look and how their hair looks and how they've really done a ton of work on doing that. So
All right, so I'm gonna give you a piece of paper now.
this is the self-portrait part, which is really cool, but we're gonna get to, oh, perfect, that's perfect, right there.
So, lo que tratamos de hacer es integrar todos los lenguajes de los niños en el salón, y esto surgió porque estábamos revisando nuestro plan de lenguaje y dijimos, ¿cómo vamos a traer a todas las lenguas de los niños a la clase? Invitando a las familias, pero ¿qué otra cosa podemos hacer? Entonces nos dimos a la tarea de estar grabando a las familias en audio. Nos estuvieron compartiendo cómo se decía buenos días en su lenguaje de casa, y así fue como lo pudimos poner en práctica. Y también lo agregamos con fotos de los niños, y ellos se sienten integrados y ellos se sienten motivados a hablar otro lenguaje también. Isaiah, can we say, que me hander come, que me hander come? You know, we're not saying correct, but we're trying, we're listening. The family's good morning every single day to get the accent. And it's not easy, but we want every child to, to be, to feel welcome in the classroom, and they know the language is coming up anytime during the day. Who speaks Tigrinya in our classroom? I want them to be very strong, have the strong identity, culture, and language. Like, I'm speak Somali and I'm so proud of it. I'm speak Spanish and I'm so proud of it. And I know my teachers can support me.
Would you like me to play more of the clip, Victor?
You can play. I think it's gonna end really soon. That might be the end.
Yeah.
But I want to see if
Can we
there's a little
say
bit.
buenos días, buenos días? Who speaks Spanish in our classroom? Teacher. Yo siendo de Durango, México, y no hablando el idioma cuando yo vine a este país, yo no quiero que los niños sufran de lo que a mí me sucedió, de que tengan su identidad fuerte, su cultura, su lenguaje, que no lo pierdan por tratar de encajar en una sociedad que tiene requisitos. You can do it, Asher. Yo lo que quiero con estas actividades es traer a los niños para que ellos se sientan confortables de quiénes son, cuáles son sus valores de sus familias, y por eso yo traigo mi cultura al salón para que las familias se sientan confortables en traer la cultura de su familia a la escuela. And this book talks about what my family do in Mexico. I try to bring something up, about myself, my family. I bring the tortillera, I bring those books. My grandma has one of this one. We talk about how we made tortillas. So we made tortillas with a family who visit us. My great-grandma made tortillas for my grandmother. The children be very engaged, but also, they doing what they love to do.
I made a big tortilla.
I know. I want them to bring who they are, and also I bring who I am.
Way back when I was younger.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Becky. Yeah, I love just how just bringing her language in allowed her to think about tortillas and Play-Doh, books. It just changed the whole dynamic of thing. And then kids were able to share, oh, I speak a different language too. And there was also one clip about they were all sitting at snack and somebody spoke in the language and tried to sort of tease the child and almost mimic it. And she was able to remind them that oh, in a very kind way, just like, oh, that's actually not how we say that. We say it this way. And it was just really great to sort of see that in action as well. So thank you so much, Becky, for showing that. So Immigrant and Asylum Seeker, there's also really wonderful books about hard topics. And this is a hard topic, and it's a topic that's really happening right now. And all over the United States, sadly. So we get to talk about immigration. We get to talk about, you know, people's stories about coming from countries that maybe they're having, conflict or war or poverty or food seeking, and that this country has been for many years an asylum for people to come. And all of us, not unless we're indigenous, have come to this country. And that's what makes this country unique, that we're all immigrants, and reminding our young children that. So these are great stories about those experiences and great stories about people who have come to this country. Next slide, please. And here's some books on adoption. We saw that video, which was amazing, incredible stories. And here are some more stories about adoption as well. Next slide, please. Books on homelessness, poverty, and food insecurity, another thing that we're facing right now. Um, so these are multiple different stories about people who don't have homes or have food insecurity, are struggling in some way. So I sort of have a range from corduroy, which I didn't even realize that corduroy was actually homeless and looking for a home, right? And to more complex stories like a shelter in our car, where a family's living in a car. Um, and also talking about people who are homeless or are looking for some kind of income, and their job is to collect cans. And so that's what this is about, the can man, and of course the food pantry. So lots of different stories about people who are struggling but make the best of their situation by hard times. Um, Next slide, please. Disability justice. There are really great books about telling the stories of people with disabilities, and they're not, for many years, they haven't been so great. And I feel like they've gotten a lot better and they're more diverse, and that our language is also changed around this topic, that we are, many of us are neurodiverse, and we live with that, and we can come out. I come out as dyslexic every time I do one of these topics, which I would never ever do before. When I was a teacher, I was too scared to. I was afraid that people wouldn't take me seriously. And I think some people figured it out with my handwriting and how I read sometimes, and how I slipped up on words, but I would not share that at all. But now I always share it. And I feel like it's coming out with, as a disabled person, is really, really important. And there are many more books than this, but these are the ones that I've used and enjoyed and found really helpful. Next slide, please. So we have another clip. This one is from the same film, and it's basically children reacting to homelessness and people who don't have homes, and sort of making a jail for them, starting off with the blocks. And the teacher talks to them about, what does it mean to be homeless and what is that like, and then had somebody come in actually to the school who actually was homeless, a parent, and talk about that. So they got a real picture of what homelessness, was, instead of all the stereotypes or what they'd heard or what they'd seen or things they were scared about. So a lot of times children come in with information into your classroom that's sometimes inaccurate, or they have feelings about it, or they've got half truths. And as educators, we get to sort of walk them through. And these two teachers do a beautiful job of that. I fortunately got to meet both of them at a workshop, and they're incredible people. And so it's nice to know that to meet the people in the film and the people that are doing this work was really, really an honor and lovely to meet them and ask them questions about the film and their teaching and their classroom stuff. It was really, really great. Like I said, if you haven't seen this whole film, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. It's incredible.
We
a great
collaborate
teaching
with
job.
other classrooms. We collaborate with our neighborhood on.
I had a group of children who were building with the Magnetiles in the classroom. And I was listening. I came up close to them, and they told me that they were making a jail for homeless people. And so that propelled a whole discussion on people without homes. And we brought in a parent who was formerly homeless, a parent that had a child at the school. And she talked about what she wanted the children to know about herself and other families who were homeless. We brought in people who worked for the city. After this very long, probably a 2-month project, the children started playing with the bigger blocks to build homes that were more soft, and they had pillows and they had blankets. Their play had changed, and the environment provided those kinds of resources for them.
Thanks for a blanket on top. Okay, everyone, listen closely. So, if you want to do this,
And what's that trick called?
it's called the wiggle. The wiggle, because you're wiggling the board.
Well, let her name it. It's her trick.
Problem solving.
We do.
And for children that got a challenge because they were trying to figure out how a child with a disability could play or get up, use something. And so they had a challenge and they had to figure it out. That's what I'm going to set this one up to. So thank you, Becky.
Encourage them to speak up for themselves. We're giving them and we're modeling for them, stick up for yourself, you know. Don't let anyone push you around. You don't like it? Then that's what you need to tell them. Giving them, you know, that's what you got a voice for. Use it. Stand up, you know, even if it's you or if you see someone being mean to me or rude to me, say something to them. What if we had a friend at our school that was in a wheelchair? Could they get on the balance board?
Definitely no.
Why not?
Because the wheelchair would make it hard to stay on.
Oh, so how could we make it so that they could play with us too? How could
we could make a square one as big as the wheelchair on.
From when I grew up and in the way I grew up, I probably would have gotten in trouble for asking, you know, or pointing to something and asking about it. Like even just something as simple as somebody being in a wheelchair, we would get shushed.
Try to do a trick on it.
So what you're saying is we can make one of these big enough to put the wheelchair on.
And then we glue it onto there, and then the person who has the hurt leg gets to go on the wheelchair, and then it can spin.
Wow. Well, that's a good idea to make one big enough. What do you think, Finn? If we had a friend in a wheelchair, how could we make it so that they could be on a balance board too?
We could take off their wheels and make like.
Their answers came so quickly, and it was like maybe while I was talking to Zara, Finn was thinking about it, but when they brought up building a platform, you know, to put the wheelchair on, and then one of them said something about stairs, and I was like, but if you're in a wheelchair, how can you get upstairs? And then Finn comes up with this idea about the ramp and just pushing them up the ramp.
Climb up the staircase.
But if they're in a wheelchair, how can they go up the stairs?
Maybe we could go crutches.
Crutches.
That could be good for us to get on. Oh yeah! Yeah!
Yeah?
Well,
Okay, wait.
Well, how could we get up the ramp?
How could we get up the ramp? For them to figure out a way for somebody who couldn't do what they could do with their legs, but even if there was the challenge of the wheelchair, they figured out a way that, hey, this person can play too.
Yeah. So you can go up the ramp, and then you can sit on it and do lots of tricks.
Finn, I really like your drawing.
Thanks.
The invention that you told me about for the wheelchair, do you think you could make a picture to show me what it would look like, the platform?
the wheelchair goes up. Then here's the platform that can move around. So then they move around on it, and someone breaks off the ramp.
They're pretty thoughtful and empathetic, and the way they just came up with those ideas was like, oh, yeah, they can do it too. It was none of that, well, they just can't do it. That never came up.
Our question today is.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. I love that there was so much time and commitment to having that discussion with young children, and they had been set up to have those conversations by having books around, by having open-ended questions, allowing them to, even make mistakes and not understand what's happening, but by asking questions, they found out more information about where they were at, and they found out from the adult where they needed to go. So I thought that was really, really brilliant. I just want to check in with people, see if they have any questions, thoughts. We've talked a lot about different things. But yeah, I'd love to. I see some books in the chat as well. Thank you so much for those. More Margot, thank you. It's great. If there are no thoughts or questions right now, or if people are doing all right, we'll keep going.
Victor, I just wanted to share an appreciation for showing the film clips. We actually just shared those films at our Hilltop conference a couple of Saturdays ago, and I just want to put in another plug. We'll send you the link after this presentation, but there are 2 films that John and Debbie created, and Victor is featured in the credits of this film that we were just watching clips from. They are incredibly powerful, and especially to watch with colleagues and families. So just encouraging you to carve out time for that. And I also just wanted to take a moment to honor the teacher who was featured, Carla, who was speaking about home language and trying to fit in, and her experience as an immigrant and helping children feel welcome in their culture and their language. Carla actually passed away about a year or maybe 2 years ago now. I did not know Carla personally, but it's very clear that she was an incredible human, an incredible teacher, and I think it's so beautiful that this film has captured a snapshot of the impact that she had on children and families, and just the remarkable work that she was doing. So I just wanted to take that moment to just let people know that about her, and just honor her and the legacy that is captured in a small moment in this film.
Thank you, Becky. Wow, I didn't know that, and I'm glad to know that. And I will now share that as I show that clip, that we are so lucky to have that from her. Yeah, and please check out those films. They're both great. There's one about parents and one about teaching, and they're both great. All right, I guess we'll move to the next slide. So many people, if you've been to my workshops, you know about these slides that I make. They often ask me about books, and that how do I have all these books for children. I love them. They're great. Parents also ask the questions, but I don't even know what to do with them. So I decided to make these slides with a brief description of the book, so parents and teachers would sort of know what they're getting into, and then have sort of active questions that you can ask yourself or ask children after the book is done, in the middle of the book, to sort of help to spark conversations that you want to have, and using vocabulary and things like Indigenous and First Nation people, Native American, before reading these books or after. So setting you up so they become teachable moments as you're reading these incredible books. And like I already talked about this book, but this is a great book. And there's actually a recipe of the fried bread in the back of the book, and it works really, really well. Next slide, please. We talked a lot about Glayson already. Again, I have a description of the book talking about the celebrating the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival, which just passed about a month ago. And sort of, I love sort of coordinating holidays and that are connected to the moon. And one is Rosh Hashanah. So just having kids sort of know that the moon is connected to holidays even. So kids can start look at the moon differently, that these are lunar holidays as well. Um, Next slide, please. This is a wonderful book. It's called We Are the Water Protectors, and I have a description of that, and then also some more questions on the side. But this is an incredible book, written by an Indigenous person. Next slide, please. We talked a little bit about this book, The Proudest Blue, but I'll talk a little bit more. It's about an Olympic athlete swimmer who happens to be Muslim, and it talks about her relationship with her sister and wearing a hijab, and how her sister is excited about wearing a hijab when she gets older. Next slide, please. I got this book when my child was a toddler, and I didn't even know it existed, and it came in the mail. And I was ecstatic, and mainly because of the images, that it showed that Jews come in all colors, are all over the world, and it made her feel less alone. I hoped as a young child who not seeing a lot of reflection of where we live in Boston of Jews of color. And we also have a poster of a different poster, but showing Jews all around the world as well. So this book was a wonderful starter for us. Next slide, please. Any thoughts so far? How are people doing? Keep moving. We're gonna have, I think, a break is coming up, a 2-minute stretch eye break. You've been very attentive and great, but I think that, yep, I had it right. So feel free to turn your screens off if they're on. You stay up a stretch, go to the bathroom, and we'll come back in 2 minutes. Get started. Well, welcome back. Hope that was helpful. Feel free to keep writing in the chat. I was checking that out during the break. Great book recommendations, and thank you so much for that. All right. So now we're going to talk about change makers, which is also going to include books. So don't worry, we're not done with the books. So when I was at a Quaker school here in Massachusetts, we talked about the people of inspiration, and they sort of used them with early childhood as an alphabet. And then it evolved into using Quaker testimonies, like peace, and sort of we would adopt the different people with different categories of that. And then it evolved into just sort of having a social justice, social studies curriculum for young children. And so it evolved from that. And so now I totally changed the whole name, and now I just call it Change Makers. And I feel like children really thrive with this, learning about people from different cultures, different environments, people who have achieved and had challenges and struggles. It's really been extremely, I'm really glad I found this curriculum, and I'm really glad I ran with it. And these are some of the people that I've done. We're going to talk about them now. So I'm really excited about it. Next slide, please. So this is a story about a child, and I love talking about other children who made a difference. And it's called The Youngest Marcher. And Andrea Faye Hendricks became an activist very young. Her parents were very much activists in the 1960s, and she got to go on marches with them. And they weren't sure at first if it was a safe thing for them to do. And then there was a call for children to come to marches. So, because they knew if they filled up the jails when they were protesting, they would even arrest children. And so she got to go to jail as a child for protesting and standing up for what her and her family believed in for civil rights. And it get to have great conversation with children about going to jail or going to prison or what does that mean? I thought only bad people went to jail and went to prison. You get to have those conversations that people actually sometimes go to jail for standing up for what they believe in, going against the law. So you get to have the black and white conversation with young children and develop some gray in there. Next slide, please. Desmond Tutu was an incredible force in South Africa uh, for ending apartheid. He was a Catholic bishop, and this is his story as a child and how he faced a lot of racism. But it's told this really gentle way where they just call it the mean word. And you never hear what the mean word is, but as adults, we kind of have figured out what the mean word is. But it's told in a very child-friendly way and how he really wanted to fight back and how his mentor, who was a Catholic priest, told him that that's not what we do. And so that's sort of why he became the person he was and helped to sort of end apartheid with Nelson Mandela. Next slide, please. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Herschel and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I always knew about Dr. Martin King Jr. I grew up, of course, hearing about all the speeches and all the amazing things that he did as a civil rights leader. I did not hear about Abraham Joshua Herschel. And I didn't hear about their relationship either. That this Jewish rabbi and this African heritage Black minister were very close during the civil rights movement and really worked together to do this work. And the book, The Prophets, Martin Luther King would carry around in his back pocket as a paperback and refer to it a lot in his speeches and sermons. So now, whenever I talk about Martin Luther King Jr., I always talk about Abraham Joshua Herschel together. And there's a great YouTube video you can watch on your own on the bottom talking about his life. Next slide, please. And there's a great book about their relationship. It also talks about their lives and how they grew up, one growing in Poland and one growing up in the United States in the South, and their challenges and struggles growing up, and then how Aaron Joshua Herschel came to the United States and then teamed up with MLK. Next slide, please. Bayard Rustin also worked tireless in the civil rights movement with Dr. King. And there's a picture of him and Abernathy, Martin Luther King. Basically, we would not have the March on Washington. He was the organizer of that, Bayard Rustin, and he's sort of been erased from history a little bit, and we're learning more about him now. There's a film about him that the Obamas put out on Netflix, I believe, a couple of years ago, which was fantastic to watch. But the reason why he was erased is because he was a gay, out Black man. He was also a Quaker. And all these things, they were afraid if he came out, it would derail the movement. So he never was able to come out during that time. In the 70s and 80s, he was able to come out and live a fully gay lifestyle, which was wonderful. But he sort of was never mentioned in these conversations. But there are now children's books about him. There are films, like I said, and his story needs to be told. And he and Martin Luther King were very close and good friends, but they both decided that he could not be out at that time. It just was too dangerous. Next slide, please. Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger is very personal to me. I grew up listening to his music as a child. I even saw him in concert in upstate New York near his home. And I basically had him playing in my classroom all the time. I didn't start talking about his actions until much later. But he became like, I had no idea he'd cleaned up the Hudson River. He had done so much for civil rights. All I knew was sort of he sang some great songs and he wrote the books Abiyoyo, but he also has a book called The Deaf Musician. And sort of just beautiful, beautiful music. And he also was in an interracial marriage with a Japanese woman. So lots and lots about him and how he was really lived off the grid and decided he wasn't going to try to have zero waste in his home, in a log cabin in upstate New York on the Hudson River. He had actually a sailboat that actually went on, called the Clearwater, which I think still exists, which goes up and down the Hudson, educating children about having clean water and the environment. And has inner city kids, and all kids sort of can go on the boat. So he's done so much, and his music is great too. So he's a great person to learn about. Next slide, please. He also lived to like 95 years old as well. Ruby Bridges, who we talked a little bit about earlier, she helped to shape integrating schools in the South, particularly in New Orleans, at a school. And her teacher actually came from, proudly I say, Boston, Massachusetts. Many teachers left the school because they were not going to teach a little black girl, and they were scared of what would happen. So they actually had a teacher come from Massachusetts to teach her. It took a year for students to come back in the school. People boycotted the school. They didn't come back. There was lots of violence and horrible things every day when she come to school, and they would scream horrible things. But her parents really taught her through prayer to really be strong and powerful. In this wonderful book by Robert Coles, who's still alive and lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts here. He's in his 90s. I saw him when I was in college and learned all about Ruby's story and was mesmerized. And Ruby Bridges is about 70 years old, I think, at this point. She's still alive, and she will come to schools as well as Miss Henry, our teacher, who is in her 90s. She lives still here in Boston. Her teacher, I got to meet her at the JFK Library here in Boston. She's an incredible speaker, incredible person, and it was like I touched history when I saw her. It was really, really powerful. I haven't met Ruby Bridges, but maybe I will one day. But her story, kids really resonate with, that she was able to sort of change the laws. And if she hadn't done it, then probably it wouldn't have happened. So she helped to integrate the schools, which is really, really great. Next slide, please. Uh, Marsha P. Johnson, you may have not heard about, and that's okay, because another person who was sort of erased from history, and she would probably identify as transgender now, but there wasn't that term when she was protesting for gay liberation. Uh, she was basically in a gay bar, and gay bars were illegal in New York City at the time, called the Stonewall. And she fought back. And when she fought back, others followed. And they went for 4 days, they fought back, and arrests were made. And but that was sort of the beginning of the gay civil rights movement, the gay liberation movement. Um, Powerful, powerful stuff. And so that's why you have gay pride parades. And Marsha B. Johnson's just was a symbol of that, and really, really powerful. And there are books coming out about her now, which is very exciting. Next slide, please. Malala just released a new book. This was her children's book, talking about her life and how she got to stand up for girls to go to school in Pakistan, where she was able to go back to and go to the school that's named after her. Um, she was actually shot at as a child, as a young child, and was flown to London, and thank goodness was saved, and her family moved there, and that's where she, I believe, lives today. She was the youngest Nobel Peace Prize person because of she went out and spoke, and talked about girls' education and how everyone needs to be educated. And she actually has a new book out, like I said before, for adults, talking about her recovering from the trauma of being shot, and talking about how she had her college years, and it was really how she had fun and how she made friends and how she had to have rebuild her whole life, going. And then she's married, and she's very happy and has a really big, big, big life. Next slide, please. Sonia Sotomayor is on the Supreme Court, first Latinx woman to be on the Supreme Court, and she's on there now. She has also wonderful children's books about disabilities. There's one called Just Ask. She grew up with diabetes, which was really, really hard. And she grew up in the South Bronx, a really hard neighborhood with a single mom. And so for her to be on the Supreme Court was merely a miracle. So it's so great to have her on there, and it's great for children to know, even though the country is sort of in a hard place, that there are people sticking up and standing up and for people's rights, who are struggling. Next slide, please. Patsy Mink was the first um, Asian woman of color in Congress, and I didn't even know she existed till maybe 5 years ago. But her story is incredible, and I believe she lived on the West Coast. I'm not sure what part, but I think that's where she was from. I believe might be California. Uh, Next slide, please. Wangari Maathai has absolutely gorgeous books written about her. She was also a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She helped to change the Kenya by planting trees. The continent had been sort of the country had been robbed of its vegetation for building factories, and so there was a lot of mudslides and things were just not great when she went away to go to school. And came back from the United States. So she decided to have women plant trees, thousands and thousands of trees for 10 years. And they changed the environment just by planting trees. And so she always believed in, before she died in 2014, that you know, people can tell you that, things are too big and you can't handle them. But, every little thing you do, like if you recycle, if you take care of the environment in some way, you make a huge difference. Because one little thing makes a big difference. So I love her philosophy. I love teaching her about children, about her story, and that she was a botanist, that she cared about the environment, and she was super smart. Next slide, please. Dolores, you probably not heard of Dolores, or maybe you have because you're on the West Coast. But on the East Coast, we had never heard of her. I did some research and found out that she is the one that coined Yes We Can, Si Se Puedes, for Cesar Chavez. And she is really the one, the underpinnings of farmers getting unionized. She was a school teacher and noticed all these children struggling who were working in the fields and for hours and didn't have the right clothes, didn't have the right place to live, and she left teaching and became an activist and joined Cesar Chavez, a name that everybody knows, but we don't know her. She is still alive. She is in her 90s, and she's still doing an activist around helping farmers get their rights. And there's this beautiful book about side by side by both of them, telling their story. Next slide, please. Greta Thunberg continues to do amazing work and did a lot of work just recently getting food to people in Gaza that were starving. She was arrested, I believe, and detained, and she really risked her life being on a ship in the water. But all these books are about her first actions when she was actually a kid, and I love talking again about a kid who could be an activist to other children and how powerful she was. And she's also identifies as autistic. So that's another thing to sort of show children that even if there were points where in her life where she was afraid to leave her house, and now she travels all over the world talking to thousands of people, and she makes adults listen. And now that she's a young adult herself, she's, really able to make big changes. Next slide, please. How you can include social justice, inclusion, and activism in children's lives. So now we're going to talk about activism a little bit, which is something that came late in my teaching career after I'd done changemaker work, but it's really valid and important. Next slide, please. So community action. I decided that we were learning about all these great people and all the things they had done, but I really wanted to have kids actually do something tangibly. One of the things that I took on was doing a protest around Wendy's, that Wendy's farm workers, after learning about that farmers' rights were great a long time ago. There was still some, even though they've been unionized, still fast food restaurants were cheating and not getting unionized produce. So we got to have that conversation. We got to educate the other parts of the school, the teachers, and we were on a university campus, so we got to go to the professors' offices and the classes and told the other college students that what we were doing. And we actually galvanized some college students, heard us, and they went to Wendy's that weekend and they were on the news protesting. So I was so excited to tell them that and show them the clip from the news that they had influenced the older kids in the school that were the college students, and they were so proud. And we wrote to Wendy's telling them about it, and it was a really powerful moment. And in 2019, Wendy's caved, and now they get all their produce, unionized produce for their restaurant. So we stood up and things changed, and I could contact those kids and tell them that they made a difference. So that was really, really powerful. I'll often march in the Gay Pride Parade or had schools do that. If they hadn't done it for activism and community action. So just lots of cool things that we've done that sort of have sort of taken it to the streets a little bit with young children. Next slide, please. Teaching activism empowers young people to make big changes in the world, even though they are small. This gentleman right here has passed away about 2 years ago now. His name is Mel King. And if you lived in the Boston area, you knew who Mel King was because he was always fighting for people's rights, always fighting for people having affordable housing, having food, and for kids to be exposed to technology. It was really important for him. He actually studied at MIT and went there. He lived well into his 90s. And I got to have him come to my classroom. That was the really great part. Next slide, please. So again, he also ran for mayor in Boston. He did not win, but he got really close in the 80s when that was unheard of to have a Black mayor. So he was this writer and activist. He taught college courses. He was just a powerhouse and stayed very humble in all of it. And the Mel King Institute still exists here in Boston and is extremely powerful. Next slide, please. And here are shots of Mel King coming to the classroom. And we had been studying a lot of different people for but when it came to community, we decided to not invite, firefighters or police officers. We were going to invite Mel King. He could be our community person because he was working really hard in the community. So we had set questions. We sat around. We had the entire all 3 classrooms come in and do it. And he was mesmerized by the depth of the questions they had. And we got to have lunch with him and really learn like what it was like to be him and have this long life. So I'm so glad that happened. Next slide, please. And here's the boycott that I talked about. These are just photos of us going from classroom to classroom, talking about why we're boycotting Wendy's and why we're not eating their food. Next slide, please. So the kids that I had doing a lot of this activist work went on to schools, and I kind of kept tabs on them through their parents. And a group of them went to a certain school here in the Boston area, and they were completely bored in December of 2020, and they decided to do an activist club and meet online on Zoom once a week. And they wanted to do something. They wanted to have something effective. So they decided to make T-shirts to sell, and then give the proceeds for Black Lives Matter, but not just have cool T-shirts, but they decided to sell T-shirts and give it to a homeless shelter here in Boston. So this stuff sticks. Like, because these children are 7, 8, and 9 here, and 2 of them were in my class, and they influenced these other children to really do this activist work. So if children start young with this, they want to keep doing it. They want to keep making a difference and be powerful. Next slide, please. And then 2 more children that were in the room, they also decided, one, they're really good artists. So they were drawing all these wonderful posters of people locally in the area and then outside the area who made a difference, who were Black. And they decided to enter this, you know how you can have those flags on lights in your communities. So they decided to enter the contest, and it was an adult contest. Like, it wasn't for kids, and they didn't think they'd even make it, and they actually got it. And so they were able to hang up their banners, and they got to drive. I remember driving and going to see them, and they were up for the whole month of February. So in this town, in Arlington, Massachusetts. So that, again, it's just like, it just keeps, snowballing into these huge things that they never thought were possible. Next slide, please. So I get to the point where, what if you don't have all the answers? And we talked a little bit about this. You don't have to have all the answers. Just really, check back in and say, I can get back to you. But I like to sort of talk about that too, because you don't have to have all the answers. Next slide, please. Thoughts? See how much time we have. Ooh, we're getting close. Okay. Um, any thoughts so far? We're about to wrap up, but I just wanted to check in with people and see.
There were a couple comments shared in the chat, Victor. Leanne shared that Patsy Mink was born and raised in Hawaii.
Hawaii, thank you for that.
So that's special to Leanne's heart.
Yeah.
Valerie also shared that Dolores Huerta was the keynote speaker at her women's studies graduation.
Wow, amazing.
It meant so much to her grandfather to meet Dolores.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, that's great. I'll remember where Patsy Mink's from now because that's where Barack Obama grew up too. So I will not forget that now. All right, I think we'll move to the next one. All right, so we're ready for our book. I might not read it because I want to have time for questions, but this is just a great book about moving together. It's about a book about disabilities, and it's beautifully written. It's beautifully, illustrations are incredible, and it just really is all about inclusion. So we'll move to the next slide. So there's some books for adults that we'll just go through real quickly. You'll have these for your resources. I sort of did a compilation of the books I've used. These are great books for teachers these are my favorite books. They're sort of the ones that I keep with me all the time. They're right next to me actually right now. And I sort of always refer to them all the time. Next slide, please. And these are other books that I've collected along the way, and they're incredibly helpful. They're great resources for other people. Some of them are my colleagues who I've worked with. Some of them are my mentors. But really just like these are the books I keep around me. And I can sort of grab. They're downstairs, they're in the basement, they're everywhere, but I know where each one is. Next slide, please. And more books, just to sort of help. Some of them are familiar and some of them are kind of rare and you don't see them around often. Next slide, please. And these are great, some classroom books here. Vivian Paley books, which I adore her. Yeah, really good stuff. Peggy McIntosh, of course. Next slide, please. And more books, more adult books that are really helpful. And you will get the slideshow, so you'll have access to these books and the covers and look for them. Next slide, please. All right, this is a reminder that we are lifelong learners. We can't afford the current administration to call us out on our confusion and our messiness. Our children deserve our best. Let's keep on keeping on. Next slide, please. Affirmation. I am friendly to everyone. I can think with an open mind. I am kind and compassionate. I will not make assumptions. I am empathetic. I will learn about things I do not understand. I will find answers for myself rather than rely on others for information. Listen to what others have to say before I make up my mind. Treat everyone with respect, even if I disagree with them. That's the hard one. I do not let bias affect my thinking or change my behavior. I embrace the things that make people different. Feel free to reach out anytime and learn and unlearn. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. I want to open the floor for questions. Next slide. First I'll probably answer the questions that were sent to me. So if you go to the next slide, I think that's probably the next. Oh, yes, it is. Perfect. As a director, the books and materials what should I purchase and make sure we have to support anti-bias inclusion practice? What teacher resource books should be in our professional library? Well, I made a bunch of adult books that you can grab, especially from that first slide. Those are the ones that I keep with me all the time, and they're next to me right now. And I highly recommend getting those, particularly for early childhood, for anti-bias education and inclusion practice. Can you include some examples or recommendations for supporting anti-bias learning, specifically with infants and toddlers, materials, books, curriculum, strategies? So the Megan Madison books are a wonderful place to start. I just did a babies toddler conference here in Boston, at Roxbury Community College, and I did a whole exercise on those books. So they're great, great place to start. And now I'll open up the floor. Go to the next slide. And just guided questions, what is your takeaway from today? Was there anything new to you? How will you be moving forward with your own work if you want to share? And go to the next slide. It's my website. Feel free to check that out and go there. The next slide. I also have a book, ebook that just came out. It's the top 10 principles to get you thinking differently. Anti-Bias 101. If you scan, you can go right to the place and buy the book right now. I'm very proud of it. I'm not a writer, and I really challenged myself to do this writing, and I was challenged to get my thoughts in an ebook and get it out there. So I hope it's supportive and helpful for your classroom, for your own growth, and it's basically my thinking out there in the world. Next slide. And this is just how you can contact me. Feel free to email me, call me. I'm also on Facebook, and I also have the website, and that's what those hashtags are on the bottom. Not hashtags, the QR codes. And feel free to visit that, join that. I post constantly on Facebook all kinds of free materials for you, book lists and all kinds of things of what's going on in the world and helpful things for young children. So now we can close it and open it up. Thank you so much, Becky, for making all the glitches come through and making it happen for us. I appreciate you. So any questions, thoughts before we wrap up? I think we have about 6 minutes. Logan.
Yeah, hey, I had a question about with Thanksgiving coming up, it's always like an awkward topic because it's one of those things where like if I told you the real history, it would be like so scary, but like like all my kids, like pretty much my whole class this year they're all white and they're all fairly affluent and they all celebrate Thanksgiving and I don't really even think the families are very clued into the real history there. So it's always like I don't know, I'm always not sure how much to say and like how to approach that. So if you have any thoughts on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I had many struggles with this in teaching. And my first year, I did the what you don't want to do, and I made kids feel bad about doing Thanksgiving, and they went home and they did want to eat turkey, and it was really bad. So don't do that. Uh, so I basically after that my recovery, and I had to apologize to parents, and I was a really young teacher just trying to do something, and I didn't do a great job. So I repaired it by the next year, and I actually had people bring in their favorite foods and did the whole like feast thing. But I did preface it that it was not a happy day for everyone. Some people, this is a sad day, and that we are living on indigenous land. Who are indigenous people? So I sort of used it as a teachable moment and talked about just that people were here before us, and Columbus Day was before it, and we kind of talked about if somebody came to your house and said this was their house. Now, would that be silly? That's not true. And made it very light and funny. And like, it's not a funny topic, but like light. So kids sort of understood that there was some confusion around Columbus and there's some confusion around Thanksgiving, but we get to celebrate it. We get to enjoy our food. We get to be together as family and be thankful that we have kind people around us and that we get to thank the people who are around us. And so I gave not all the truths, but I gave that it may not be the best day for everyone. And that seemed to work. Any other questions? Thoughts?
I was really inspired by the activism that you have done with children and how it has continued. That is very inspiring. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, it came later in my career. I wasn't starting out doing that. It's sort of I was at a school where I had a lot of help to sort of figure out those kinds of things. And I think because I went to a Quaker school where they just kind of did things very easily around activism, that I sort of learned how to do that. And again through trial and error. But it ended up being this really powerful thing. So much so that kids would actually leave the room and then fly to another country. I had this child fly to Jordan and meet her grandparents, and she got off the plane and they had Wendy's for her, because they wanted something American when she got off the plane. And she said, and she was 4, and she said, we can't have this, and this is why. And so her mom texted me from the airport and said, my daughter, even though she hasn't been in your classroom for like a whole year, she remembers what she did when she was 3. And like was telling them, and they were fascinated. What school does she go to? What do you how does she know all this stuff? So yeah, it's I got the rewards back from the work that we did, and not just by changing things, but also from parents who were a little scared of it at first and then saw that their children could actually think and really have empathy. So thanks, Valerie. Any other questions?
So I was curious on how do you uh share this like with families kind of at the beginning of the year? I mean, do you just right out of the box like
Yeah.
say have certain topics, you weave it into the curriculum and or just what do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, great question. I never really knew where I was going to go. I did have my classroom sort of did have a lot of posters on the wall and inclusion things. So parents knew when they entered my room that it was going to be a very different space than maybe the other schools they had been to. And I just kind of my curriculum night was basically just saying this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it, and I really want open dialogue with you because your child's going to come home maybe with some confusion, maybe saying like this is bad or this is good or whatever, and I want to hear from you. And I would send out newsletters, pretty extensive newsletters on Saturday nights, which is kind of odd, but that's when I would write them. And then they'd read them on Sunday mornings. Instead of reading the Sunday paper, they would read my newsletters, and parents love those. So they'd see what had happened the week before, and then they'd get to see where we were going to go next. So there was I really kept them very informed. So if there was any confusion, they would just ask me, be like, I don't understand why we're doing this. And then we could have the conversation. So we were very rarely derailed. I also had a director who backed me 100% in the 3 schools that I was in towards the end of my teaching career, which also really helped. You have to have administrative support because if things do blow up, particularly now, things, I mean, I had it easy because this is before all the stuff that's happening now. Um, People were more just like, oh, okay, I'm learning from Victor. But now there's all this pushback. So you have to have supports. You have to have an administrative backing you if you really want to do this work full on. My partner, my wife, Sabina, she is in a public school here in Massachusetts, so she can't do a lot of things, but she can sneak it in and she weaves it into her curriculum and she gets great books. She's a literacy teacher, so she's able to get readers with diverse characters and sort of weaves those stories in. So if you're in a place that's not doing this, you can, there are ways to do it. Um, so I hope that's helpful.
How do you address the one parent or the one family that is kind of giving pushback? I feel like there's always, that one.
Yes. I do a lot of listening. I kind of listen to them for a really long time until they're all done. And then I sort of find some kind of loophole or somewhere where we found out where they were hurt in a certain way. And sometimes it helps to clean it up. I think I told my story about the Gay Pride Assembly at the Quaker School before last time I was with you all. Things like that. You sort of have to really trust the parents' thinking, but even if you don't agree with it, and get on their side and feel like you're really listening to them. Um, and that seems to help. And sometimes, maybe it's not the right fit for them either. The school is not the right place for their family. And I've had that happen too, where I had this father and he just really believed in guns and he believed in weapons and he didn't believe in anything with peace. He wanted all the peace things off my walls. And we tried to negotiate with that family. He said, my son's a warrior, he's a hunter. And I said, that's great. But like, we also, there are other people in the world too. Don't you want to learn about other kinds of people? And he wouldn't back down. So he ended up leaving the school, but it just wasn't a good match. And I think that's okay too. You can't always win all the battles. But I think listening and listening and listening and listening, and then finding some way in, some connection with that parent, helps.
Hi, Victor. I was going to ask you that question. It sounds like you were working in some very supportive schools who, where the administration and the school culture really embraced the work that you were doing. And I feel like that is a really big foundational piece for, moving a program in this kind of direction, and then getting buy-in from the families who enroll in the program.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's really important for that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. I've also had teachers work with me that weren't sure either, and sort of having to win them over was also hard sometimes. But I would just check in with them before school and after school and say, "So what came up today that made you confused?" And we talk through it, or they come to me and be like, "Why did you say that? Why did you do that?" And we could talk about it. So having open dialogue with that person you're working with, or the other classroom that's watching you and being like, "Why are you doing that with kids?" Is also important. Any last questions? I don't want to keep you because it's late and you've been very patient and wonderful, wonderful people tonight. So thank you so much for all your attention and wonderful questions and feedback and just everything. It's been a really lovely, lovely night. But I'll wait one more question if you want. If anybody has a burning question they want before we go. Anything in the chat I missed? Haven't checked it. See anything? Becky, did you see anything that I missed?
Valerie offered up a great adult book option by Joseph Lee, Nothing More of This Land, Community Power and the Search for Indigenous Identity. So I'll include that in the resources.
Please, thank you so much.
I'll make sure to grab all the book suggestions from the chat and put
Great.
those in the follow-up email. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'll
Yeah.
also send a bunch of book lists as well that I have and videos and things that people have used. So I'll send that out as well.
Victor, thank you so much. I want to echo Leanne's insightful comment earlier in the night of you just have such an incredible way of delivering this content that just makes it feel very doable and very achievable. And being in your trainings, it's like basking in this oasis of we can do this. It can be very beautiful and uplifting. And they're even really heavy, serious topics. We can approach these in light and creative ways with children while still being honest with them about about our history, and our current realities too. We can inspire, right, each other and our kids. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you for being such wonderful participants in this series. I dropped a couple links in the chat again to stay connected to Victor. Really encourage you to check out his ebook. I will definitely be purchasing that. And a link to our final training of this season. It's a family training, but educators are welcome. We won't be offering STARS credit, but the content is wonderful, and I think you'll really enjoy the Raising Resilient Kids training. And feel free to come off mute and say goodbye on your way out. Thanks so much, everybody.